Welcome to Pod.
Welcome back into the Chris Mathis podcast. I'm your host, Chris Mathis, with my co-host, Spencer Mathis, once more for another awesome weekend, or I guess you could say recap of the week here regarding sports. I think the biggest story, obviously, being that the Carolina Panthers have found a quarterback, another misfit to fit in their quarterback committee room as they add Baker Mayfield via trade for a 2024 fifth-round draft pick. Baker Mayfield traded from the Cleveland Browns to the Carolina Panthers, and he joins fellow class of 2018 NFL draft pick number 3, Sam Darnold in Carolina, in the same quarterback room, two different quarterbacks from the same draft class, all top 3 picks. And I don't know if there's much of a competition here. I thought maybe before I checked some stats that there would be somewhat of a competition, but you look at the numbers, and it's staggering at how much better Baker Mayfield has been than Sam Darnold over his first 4 years in the NFL. Granted, Sam Darnold hasn't had all the help or the committee, the weaponry that Baker Mayfield has had, but still, when I think of Baker's career, I do think it's been a little bit disappointing. But when you compare the two quarterbacks' his numbers, it's insane. But Spence, first and foremost, initial thoughts on this trade in which the Carolina Panthers just offer up a fifth-round pick in 2024 for a former number 1 overall pick and Baker Mayfield, a quarterback with just 4 years under his belt.
Yeah, I like the Panthers going out to get Baker Mayfield, but the thing I do not like about Carolina is the amount of money that they spent on the quarterback position over the last 3 years. 2020, they had Teddy Bridgewater. 2021, Sam Darnold. 2022, it's going to be either Darnold or Mayfield. But saying that there's no competition, I don't think you can really say that because Sam Darnold is being paid $19 million next season by the Carolina Panthers, and Baker Mayfield's being paying like $5 million, I believe, because he took a big pay cut to be traded away from the Cleveland Browns. But I do think Baker Mayfield is a better quarterback than Sam Darnold. Darnold is basically Josh Rosen, but just continues to get chances and chances for some odd reason. I mean, you look at the weapons that the Panthers had last season and DJ Moore. They also had Robbie Anderson. They had McCaffrey at the start of the season. And Darnold went 4-0. And then after that, after those 4 games, they didn't win again. So I don't know how Sam Darnold's going to play next season, but he's got to play great. He's got to be able to take the starting position from Baker Mayfield because going into training camp, Darnold should have the advantage at getting the starting position over Mayfield. He's been there for a year, even though he did get benched last season for Cam Newton. Baker Mayfield's being paid about $14 million less for the next season. So Darnold has just got to he's got to win the starting job if he wants to be a quarterback in the NFL come 2023, because if he loses it to a guy that's being paid $14 million less than himself, then I think you've got another situation like Josh Rosen where he's out of the league within 2 years.
Yeah, and you talk about obviously Baker Mayfield being paid nearly $15 million less than Sam Darnold heading into this season. Darnold makes $18.8 something million this upcoming season with the Carolina Panthers. And you say that he's going into camp. You expect him to go into camp as a starter. He just simply has to, and as simple as it could get, I guess you could say. I know it's going to be a little bit challenging. Baker Mayfield has a lot to prove, and he's trying to prove all the doubters wrong. Especially his new offensive coordinator, Ben McAdoo, but we'll get into that here momentarily. Not sure if you saw those comments that McAdoo made about both quarterbacks, actually, but in particular, Baker Mayfield. So you think heading into camp that Baker Mayfield has the short end of the straw, and you expect Sam Darnold to hang on to that starting job throughout the season?
Well, for Sam Darnold's sake, I hope he does, but I don't think he will. I think Baker Mayfield's a better quarterback than Darnold, even if Mayfield's labrum is still recovering, even though it was his left shoulder. Even if it's still recovering, I believe Baker Mayfield's a better quarterback. He's going to show that in OTAs and then preseason and whatever else because he's got a better skill set than Sam Darnold. I mean, Darnold can run, but he just can't read the defense. You remember the thing of him seeing ghosts in the previous time. So Baker Mayfield, I think, is going to be the Carolina Panthers starting quarterback in 2022, and we'll see how they can do. I think that the signing, if Mayfield is the starter from week 1, gives them an opportunity to be a playoff contending team, maybe a wild card squad, just because Baker Mayfield's a good leader. I mean, he's you saw it through college. You saw it his first couple of years in the NFL up until last season when the beef started with all of his teammates. But he was a good leader. He took that Browns team from 2-14 to 6-10 in his first season as a starting quarterback. And he didn't even get to start the first couple of games because Tyrod Taylor was the quarterback. So if Baker Mayfield can get the reins from week 1 and return to a shell of his previous self, I think the Panthers could probably go 9-8 or 10-7 next season.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield, obviously first overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, over 14,000 career passing yards, 92 touchdown passes, 56 interceptions, a career passer rating of 87.8%. And you referenced a playoff berth for the Browns back in 2020 in which Baker threw for 3,500 yards, 26 touchdown passes, and just 8 interceptions. And again, that's a year in which he was healthy. Could it be as simple as that? Baker Mayfield was unhealthy last year. He did struggle. And I think that the Cleveland Browns coaching staff hung him out to dry there, especially in that Steelers game in which TJ Watt was going right after Baker Mayfield time and time again. And at a certain point, even though Baker probably admitted that he wanted to play throughout that injury, which I think he owned up to, at a certain point as a coaching staff, as an organization, if you believe in a guy, you're not going to allow him to hurt himself over a pointless game like that game and, tarnish your future with a quarterback, tarnish his injuries and his health. And that's what happened. He got beat up and now he's out of Cleveland. They signed Deshaun Watson, pay him big bucks, and the rest is history for Baker Mayfield there in Cleveland.
Yeah, well, I think it's evident now that this was Kevin Stefanski's plan all along. I remember whenever this was happening, like the week after, I thought that Baker Mayfield was left out to dry on purpose by Stefanski. And I think as this goes on, after the Deshaun Watson signing, after everything that's happened, and Baker Mayfield's now been traded to the Carolina Panthers, I think this proves that Stefanski wanted to show the world and the Browns fans that Baker Mayfield wasn't the quarterback of the future by throwing him out there with an injury. He obviously wasn't feeling confident at all in his abilities in that Steelers game. He got sacked a bunch of times, like just under 10 times he was sacked in that game, mostly by TJ Watt. But you can tell that Stefanski left Baker Mayfield out to dry just to prove that they should move on from him going into the 2022 season, which they did by paying Deshaun Watson, who may not even play next season, the most money in NFL history at any position, and giving him, I think, 5 or 6 year deal with a $250 million guaranteed, all guaranteed to a guy that's probably not going to play the first 8 games of the season or maybe even the entire season. So this looks like the plan all along from Stefanski. We'll see if it bites the Browns in the ass. I think it will, but I think that this trade here opens up Jimmy Garoppolo as a possibility of going to the Cleveland Browns once this Deshaun Watson news is settled, because Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be a team that someone's going to trade for. I mean, he's going to be a player that some team is going to trade for. So I could see, if Deshaun Watson were suspended more than 8 games going into next season, them trading for Jimmy Garoppolo, because if they don't, they're going to throw an entire season away with Jacoby Brissett as the starting quarterback.
Yeah, and I referenced a few moments ago, Ben McAdoo, Panthers offensive coordinator, had some interesting comments when Baker Mayfield was coming out of college from Oklahoma into the NFL draft. And at the time, Ben McAdoo, who was head coach, or was he OC with the New York Giants 4 years ago?
He was head coach.
Head coach with the New York Giants. Terrible head coach. Very iffy. So, I can't take his scouting report of Baker Mayfield too seriously, but he's on record of saying this about Baker when he was first coming into the NFL. He said, I didn't see a lot of pro-style football in his college tape, and if you're short, you have to be able to make up for it some way, somehow, and personality doesn't do that. I didn't think he was a great athlete. This guy is kind of like a pocket quarterback that is short with small hands, and that's what I worry about. Now he's the offensive coordinator of Baker Mayfield. I know this is kind of a weird question to pose, but do you think that there's going to be an elephant in the room when Baker Mayfield shows up to that locker room, shows up to the film room, and he looks across the table at the guy who said those things about him just 4 years ago? And one might argue, if you look at Baker's career, that Ben McAdoo is right as of now.
No, I don't think that there's really going to be an elephant in the room to address, because Ben McAdoo is correct and Baker Mayfield has to prove him wrong as the second string quarterback going into OTAs to Sam Darnold. If he can take the job from Darnold, I think Baker Mayfield proves him wrong. But if you go back to watching Baker Mayfield in college, he was good whenever they were in a 5-wide offense. So he's a guy that it's got to know where the ball is going to go before the play starts, because like he said, like McAdoo said, he's a short quarterback with small hands that doesn't have great mobility. So he's got to have a predetermined throws, and that's why he throws so many interceptions, because once he gets moved off of his mark, he doesn't know where to go with the football, and he took sacks whenever he was injured, but whenever he's not injured, he's going to be throwing interceptions a lot like Jameis Winston did in 2019 for the Buccaneers. I mean, but the thing is, I believe Jameis Winston's a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield. He's got a better arm. He's got better pocket presence than Mayfield. You can see it in Jameis Winston's workout videos. But Baker Mayfield, I mean, Ben McAdoo was right about what he said about Baker Mayfield. He also said bad things about Sam Darnold as well. But his number one quarterback in that draft was Josh Allen, which is crazy because everyone thought that Josh Allen wasn't a pro-ready quarterback. So McAdoo was right there. But we'll see how Ben McAdoo and Baker Mayfield can blend together next season in Carolina if Mayfield is given the keys to the Panthers ship.
According to a report from CBS Sports, now that we kind of wait where Jimmy G ends up, if he can get out of San Francisco or if he's stuck there and has to stay put for a little while, he's throwing again, which is big because that's going to help with trade rumors. That's going to help with teams showing some interest in him. I do think that teams interested have shrunken now that Carolina's got obviously Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. And then Cleveland, as of now, they feel pretty confident in Jacoby Brissett. But I saw a report earlier today that top 5 landing spots for Jimmy G are as stands in no particular order. I'm going to ask you here momentarily what you think the order would be in terms of least likely all the way up and vice versa to most likely. New England, Seattle, Houston, Chicago, and Cleveland are the top 5 alleged destinations for Jimmy Garoppolo here. Once these trade rumors come about here in the coming weeks, hopefully no more than a month, because I mean football is just around the corner.
Yeah, I've got Cleveland number 1. I've got New England not ever going to happen. And then number 3, I would just put Seattle. The other 2 can be number 2 or number 4. It doesn't really matter. But I think that Jimmy Garoppolo is a really good bridge quarterback. He's not a guy that you want to be your franchise quarterback within the next 3 years. He could maybe go a year or 2, but he's going to give your team a shot at the playoffs just because of his style of game management. If you have a good defense and you don't have a great quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo is a guy that could make your team a compatible squad to compete to make the playoffs as a wild card squad. You're not going to win a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, but it could propel your team into the future by giving them confidence, and then eventually you'll get your franchise quarterback somehow. But Jimmy Garoppolo is not a franchise quarterback. He's a great bridge quarterback. He's like a Ryan Fitzpatrick, but better. So if I'm a team that has a good defense, offense is lackluster, but you've got a good running back or a decent receiving core like the Seattle Seahawks, I like Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, I'd maybe trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. In Seattle, you have Drew Lock right now. You've got Geno Smith. You could trade away one of those backups. You could trade Drew Lock if you wanted to for Jimmy G. And I think the 49ers would take that as a backup quarterback because Drew Lock's probably 25. Jimmy Garoppolo is well over 30 at this point. So I think Jimmy Garoppolo to the Seahawks or Jimmy Garoppolo to the Cleveland Browns would be a really good destination for him.
I think for Jimmy G's sake, the best opportunity is Cleveland if he's able to go there, because Carolina was his best spot before Baker Mayfield was traded just for a 5th-round draft pick in 2024. And I think that if you go to Seattle, you're wasting time, especially at his age. And even if he's in a right situation, a perfect scenario, if he was on a great team right now, I don't think that Jimmy Garoppolo is a Super Bowl winning quarterback ever. So if I'm a franchise, if I'm a front office guy, if I'm a GM of a football team, I don't know how much I'm willing to put stake into a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, because I just don't think he has that X factor to win it all.
Yeah, if I'm the Browns general manager and the news that Deshaun Watson has been suspended an entire season comes out before training camp starts, I'm trading for Jimmy Garoppolo immediately. I don't want to waste an entire season, like I said prior, with Jacoby Brissett as your quarterback. Whenever you're the Cleveland Browns, you have a great team right now. I mean, Amari Cooper just joined the squad. You've got Nick Chubb in the backfield, Kareem Hunt. You've got a great defense that features Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward. I mean, they've got a great team. They're going to be a playoff squad regardless of who quarterback is, as long as it's one of these two. It can't be Jacoby Brissett. I think maybe they could squeak into the playoffs with Jacoby Brissett if they want to run the ball over and over again with Nick Chubb. But Stefanski wants to open up the offense, and I think Jimmy Garoppolo is a guy that can do that, kind of like Deshaun Watson, if Deshaun Watson is suspended for the entire season, because Garoppolo is a better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett ever will be and ever has been. So if the Browns get the news that Deshaun Watson is suspended for an entire season coming up in 2022, I think Jimmy Garoppolo is the number one trade destination for them. And then second, I would put the Seattle Seahawks as number two for Jimmy Garoppolo's sake, because you have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, a good running back. Your offensive line absolutely blows, and that could derail his career. But if you're going as Jimmy Garoppolo for one season to one team, the Cleveland Browns is who you want to go to get an opportunity to get a big contract in the next season coming up.
Yeah, earlier today, you also sent me a DM regarding Madden ratings. I know that you're big on Madden. I like Madden until I played it last weekend with you and got waxed. That kind of stinks because I used to, whoop you a lot. And now times have changed, and now you destroy me at Madden. But anyways, you sent me a DM earlier of Ezekiel Elliott, what his rating should be in Madden Ultimate Team this year. So this year he had a better year than he had in 2020. And you look at his overall ratings throughout his career, 84 his rookie year, his second year in the league, 92 overall, then dropped back down to a 90, rose back up to a 94, dropped down to a 92, dropped back down again for a second consecutive year last year on Madden 22, and was an 88 overall. This year he had better numbers. He finished with 1,000 yards rushing, 12 total touchdowns, I think around 260 receiving yards. I think that his rating will go up from last year's 88 to probably a flat 90. What's your take there on Ezekiel Elliott and what he'll be rated here in Madden Ultimate Team? And obviously, you're a guy that plays it a lot more than I have, and you obviously know the running backs and how they value the rushing attack on Madden these days.
Yeah, I mean, Ezekiel Elliott's overly hated. I'm one of the guys that do not like him that much. I think Tony Pollard is a better running back than Ezekiel Elliott. But over his career, he's averaged 4 yards per carry in every single season he's played. He also had 10 rushing touchdowns last season, which is up from 6 in 2020. So Ezekiel Elliott was an 88 going into Madden last year. I think Ezekiel Elliott's probably going to drop to an 86 just because of the perception that fans have of Ezekiel Elliott all over social media, over the entire NFL. I think people agree that Tony Pollard is probably a better running back than Ezekiel Elliott at this point, who's had a bunch of injuries over his career, but he's continued to put up 4 yards a carry, usually multi-touchdown seasons, above 9 or 10. So Ezekiel Elliott, I think going into next season is an 86 overall at best, in my opinion, but we'll see what the Madden adjusters do because they're usually wrong about these ratings anyway. So
yeah, well, you mentioned fans and their perception on how they feel about Ezekiel Elliott, running back of the Dallas Cowboys. Why does that matter in terms of ratings for Madden?
I feel like Madden's a big thing over social media. So I think they're going to get their ratings from, they're going to get a sense of what fans think of Ezekiel Elliott and try and put that into the game. I think they should, because Ezekiel Elliott should not be an 88 going into next season. I know he put up 1,000 yards, but I still think, like I said earlier, Tony Pollard's a better running back than Ezekiel Elliott.
So in that case, if Ezekiel's, what'd you say, 86, then Pollard should be 87, 88?
They won't do that because Tony Pollard is a backup, so they're putting him at an 83, but I think Pollard's a better running back. He's also a really good punt returner and kick returner, which goes unnoticed. He's much faster than Ezekiel Elliott. He's much more elusive than Ezekiel Elliott. He can catch better than Ezekiel Elliott, but Madden's going to put him at an 83.
See, and that's kind of my problem with the rating is that if they're basing it off what our fans of the league say about the players, hey, Zeke should be this, Zeke should be that. But if everybody's thinking, hey, Tony Pollard's a better back than Elliott, well, that just doesn't make sense why he wouldn't be rated higher. And I know that they have to look at the stats from the past season and whatnot, but if Madden's relying on fans to throw out ratings and they think that Tony Pollard's the better back, which he is, I don't think that Zeke should be, 7, 8, 10 points higher than Pollard.
Yeah, but they're going to do that only because they're going to look at the depth chart and see that Ezekiel Elliott, of course, is the starter going in 2022, and Pollard's number 2. So they can't put the backup running back above Ezekiel Elliott, who's going to be the starter.
Moving on to basketball now, Spence. Let's talk a little bit of hoops. 12 years ago today, LeBron James said, "I'm taking my talents to South Beach," which that's crazy to think about. I've never been big on basketball. I used to love LeBron James. Not that I hate him now, but I just don't follow him like I once did. And I remember that day when he announced that he was going to Miami, said he's going to win not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 championships. That had me amped up. The way they did a whole video on it on ESPN, a whole special about him headed to South Beach. He ended up winning 2 titles, 2012 and 2013 with the Miami Heat, then left there, and he since then has won 2 more titles, so a total of 4 NBA championships throughout his NBA career. He's 37 years old right now, Spence, which is kind of sad to think about because even if people don't think that he's the GOAT, which is completely fine by me at this point, or if they don't respect or appreciate him, unfortunately for his off-the-court comments, I think that they weigh that too much into how they view LeBron James. It sucks to think that LeBron James' time in the NBA, you're looking at maybe a 5-year window if he can stay healthy. And obviously this past season, he missed more playing time than he has in quite some time. Load management had played a part into that for sure. But how realistic do you think it is for LeBron James to win at least one more NBA title before it's all said and done? And I think his window is 5 more years.
I think it's very realistic because players are recognizing that these are the last couple of seasons for LeBron James. And like Tom Brady in the NFL, you're going to see a lot of players gravitating towards the Lakers over the next couple of seasons. And LeBron James is basically their GM. I mean, he controls how that team is constructed. And I think that they're going to be able to sign Kyrie Irving, and that's going to give them an opportunity to win the NBA championship next year, or at least compete better than they did this year where they didn't even make the playoffs. So I think LeBron's window to win a championship is over the next 2 years. I don't think he's going to do it past 40. The NFL is a lot different from the NBA. And as a quarterback like Tom Brady, you can go a lot longer than if you're a power forward like LeBron James running up and down the court over and over again, night in and night out, throughout his career, especially, but not now, of course, because of the load management that has taken over the NBA. But I mean, I think he's got 3 more years in the league. And 2 of those, he's got a chance to compete.
Okay, yeah, and obviously his son Bronny has a shot, and they're gonna. I think that no matter what, no matter if if LeBron's got a cane and plays longer than 3, 4, 5 years, and Bronny comes into the league, I think that they're gonna play at least 1 season together. I don't know if it'll be on a great team because in reality, who wants to deal with LeBron being upset that his son isn't a starter, isn't getting playing time, or who's gonna pay LeBron all this money and have to deal with him babysitting his kid and the NBA?
Yeah, at that point in LeBron's career, he's going to be a guy that you don't want as a starting 5 player, maybe a borderline starting 5 player. And whoever drafts Bronny is going to be a really bad squad. So think of a team like the Charlotte Hornets or something like that. I could see LeBron going to a really low market squad, which will really help the low market team who doesn't have a big market at all. So if you sign LeBron James and you get his son Bronny on the same team, you're going to get a lot of fans. You're going to get a lot of recognition. So why not pull the trigger on LeBron James and pairing him with his son for a year like Ken Griffey Jr. did with Ken Griffey Sr. on the Seattle Mariners back in the day. So I think LeBron James, like I said, has got 2, 3 more years to compete, probably 2 of those years competing. And then he'll be a guy that's going to probably be on a bench of a bad squad until his son makes it to the league, which should be within the next 4 years. So I think we'll see those 2 play together, like you said, but LeBron's not going to be anywhere near where he is now because LeBron's still a really good player at the age of 37, and I think he's got 2 more years left to compete.
Another guy that had a big offseason in the NFL, other than Deshaun Watson, was Von Miller, 33-year-old defensive end, left the Rams after he won a Super Bowl. He got paid big in Buffalo, 6-year, $130 million contract, which is absurd. I don't care how good he is. I think this is prime contract for Von Miller, and he's past his prime. He's still very good, but he's well past his prime. And when you go to Buffalo, you don't have a guy like Aaron Donald getting double-teamed every other snap. So Von Miller's production will drop a little bit. But Von Miller said, and this is weird, after he signed his contract, I guess about a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, he said this week that he would have taken a pay cut to go to Dallas because, after all, it's Dallas. Now, is he talking about Dallas, the city, or Dallas, the team? If he's talking about Dallas, the team, this guy's nuts because this team is always a first month of the league Super Bowl champion before we really even get to that midway point of the season, and then they fall off in the playoffs. How do you take those comments from Von Miller saying that he'll take a pay cut to go to Dallas because it's Dallas?
Yeah, that's stupid. I mean, he's been with the Bills for a month, like you said. Now he's going to be talking about the Dallas Cowboys, how he'd take a pay cut. I think that's going to really rub some Bills fans the wrong way. But then I thought you were going to ask about whenever Von Miller said that he can play out the remaining 7 years of his contract in Buffalo, which I was going to say that there's absolutely no shot because Von Miller just last season after the playoff run, the Super Bowl win with the Rams, he said that there's nothing like the playoffs and that in the regular season, he just can't reach down and perform as well as he does in the playoffs because there's not anything on the line. So going back to him saying that he can play 7 more seasons in the league, he's not going to make the playoffs all 7 seasons. And I don't think he's going to be able to play into his 40s as an outside linebacker or a defensive end. So I think those comments are stupid, along with his comments about the Dallas Cowboys. I know that the Cowboys are a bigger market than the Buffalo Bills. Like you said, they're always on TV. For some reason, they're America's team from 20 years ago that for some reason they still hold that same name. It should be the New England Patriots at this point after their dynasty that they had. But Dallas Cowboys, a great squad. I mean, they're never going to win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott as their quarterback. I don't care what you say. I don't like the comments at all if I'm a Bills fan because the Bills are a team that's got a really good chance to win the Super Bowl next season. They're definitely going to be in the AFC Championship, probably facing against the Kansas City Chiefs, or they actually may not make it to the AFC Championship because looking at that division, it's absolutely insane. So Von Miller's got to be on his A game going into next season. I don't like those comments at all if I'm anywhere near the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, me either. If I'm his teammate, I'm a little bit disappointed. I'm hurt because you stack up the two teams side by side. I like the Bills a lot more than Dallas. If those two teams were to meet in the Super Bowl, I'd take the Bills all day long. And Josh Allen, other than that rookie year and second year in the league, is light years better, in my opinion, than Dak Prescott. But that'll wrap up another edition of the Chris Mathis podcast. Go check us out on social media at TCM_pod. Follow Spencer at LSavageSpence on Twitter. And then what's your Instagram, Spence?
L. Spencer Mathis.
L. Spencer Mathis. Follow me at the Chris Mathis on all social media. As always, check us out next week.